And this is what I want to try and bring to you guys tonight, specifically because when you have that truth and when you have some of those answers and you can follow the money and all the stuff we're going to show you, you can understand and know about and work more towards what is going to be our energy future. So this is basically a three-part presentation. I'm going to start off with an issue that some of you may know well and some of you may not even really believe is an issue at all, or perhaps a dead issue, if you will. But this issue is not going away in the least, and that is, in fact, the smart meter fires. We're going to walk through this forensically and scientifically as we go along, and you're going to understand as we move further the value of the data and everything, which is what is turning all of you into collateral damage, your homes, your property, your businesses, as you go forward. So here we go.
There's absolutely no incidents of house fires being caused by a meter.
So that was a hydro representative. I believe that was in Enderby. And this is the common refrain of any utility, meter manufacturer, and all that. Why? Because this is about liability. If they tell us that they own the meter and the meter is the cause, well, they're responsible. So always it gets pushed onto us. So what are some of the issues with the fires? Well, we have high voltage surges. You can see here some of the causes. As you know, we had a big tree storm in BC. This knocks out power and that type of stuff. They happen all the time. And what has happened basically is on the older style meters, they used to have what's called a surge arrestor on them, as you can see there. And on the newer ones, they are taken off. And we're not quite sure why they did that. This could be an issue with margins for profits for the meter makers, or of course, there is the possibility that this is going to interfere with the digital circuitry and the data gathering and whatnot. So why is this a concern? Well, on the older style, it would go through, and if there was a surge, that surge arrestor would ground the meter to the base, which was grounded to the grounded rod, and would dissipate the energy into the ground. Now, without the arrestors, the surge is forced to go to the path of least resistance, which of course is now through your home and your appliances. Or as we'll see later, will actually just blow the meters off the house. We also have lower voltage surges and transients. And this is the Electric Power Research Institute talking to us about fundamental safety weaknesses in the newer meters. They do have some components in them that, of course, will help to mediate some of these causes, but it talks about surges that exceed the tested limits in either quantity or magnitude could cause meter damage or failure. Again, these are not larger surges. And also, they talk about the older style meters. The testing they do on the new ones, they don't even do, or they didn't do on the older meters, because they knew they were so robust and could handle this. The remote disconnect. So as you can see here, the meter maker, this is Itron in one of their videos. You can watch this online, bragging about this remote disconnect and reconnect activities. And what is this basically? They will send some signals through their relay systems all the way back into your meter. Maybe you're not paying your power bill or your hydro or whatnot. So this is their way that they want to shut off your power. The only issue with that is this causes arcing inside your meter, which is a really bad thing no matter where electricity is going. Now, why did they decide to do this? Well, in the past, they would actually have to send a guy out on a bucket truck, and this costs money and labor and time, and we know that utilities are for-profit entities. So they decided to remove this. So what's basically happening is if the power is running through that meter, they're going to make a separation on purpose, right? Like kind of if you unplugs an appliance late at night and there's power going through it, the circuit will try and continue. That's what causes that arc. So same thing here, just think about a lot more electricity, which means a lot more heat. So they're basically doing this on purpose for money. Installations under load and the installers damaging the meter base. You can clearly see this here. This one was, I believe, on Victoria Island. And what basically happens is they will come in and they're supposed to be checking the meter, the base, and everything, which is what, of course, they say they do. But what happens is these guys are getting paid speed commissions. The faster they go, the more money they actually earn because, again, the utilities want the data. So they come in here and they damage the base. Now, of course, that's blame on the homeowner that can't actually even touch their base. And what happens here is you're supposed to have a nice tension, a nice fit, how it goes in, kind of like when you just plug in anything at your house. And when this gets damaged, you create distance, you create resistance and arcing. And the same here on the right side. So they want to do this so fast, the smart meters, and get them installed. The contractors want to get paid. So they're taking the meters off and putting them back on under load. And you get basically kind of like a scarring on the meter base. And this will cause resistance and more arcing and fires. One of the issues with that is on the older style meters, we used to have bakelite on the back, and of course we had metal, alloys, and glass. On the newer meters, it's cheap overseas made plastic. So of course that has a lower melting or flash point, and you can see some of the damage that is caused from that. We also have the meter makers themselves generating documents stating very clearly, do not provide this document directly to the public because we wouldn't want to take this out of context, the information. It's actually for the utilities and the fire departments in answering media inquiries so they can deflect the blame on the problems they've caused, of course, onto you guys. Because remember, it's about ownership and liability here. Here's another issue. We have the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. They were taking one of the utilities to court for a matter, and they also decided to let them know that the smart meters had thinner blades. So again, you have a smaller blade, you don't get that proper tension, you have a little bit of distance, and it generates the arcing, which they testified to. The loose connection caused heat, which in turn caused an electrical arc, which resulted in 2 pallets of burned up meters. Whenever you guys see Itron, just know that these are the exact meters that are on your homes right now, creating hazardous conditions, damaging the wiring, all the things that people have been reporting, these guys are letting us know about. I wanted to give you a visual example here. You can see on the left-hand side how everything looks fine and dandy, perhaps like how your smart meter would be. But notice how a bad connection, what kind of extreme temperatures and heat that can cause. This is an example of what's going on out in the field. Now in that same situation here, we had the technicians talking about 3 to 4 fires a month. This is what they're reporting to the utility, and what does the utility say? It doesn't matter, we're gonna have to use these anyway. Again, they're counting the money they spent on the meters, the amount of data they're gonna generate, and that's worth more than any of your property or of course your lives, etc. So arcing equals fires. It's clearly obvious. These are the laws of electricity. They've been well established for a long time. We have the installers damaging the bases. They're installing under load. They've taken off the surge arresters. They have thinner blades. They have the issue with the remote disconnect, and the lower voltage surges and transients damage the meters. Any one of these issues, of course, is terrible. When we start compounding them all on top of each other, it's extremely bad. So if I'm telling the truth, and the laws of electricity are real and established, well, surely we would have some real-world examples out there that would let us know that this is the case, and in fact, we do. This was in Stockton, California. So they had a surge, somebody crashed into a utility pole, and look what happened to all these meters, those completely 100% safe meters. Sounded like a large pop, like a bomb going off. This is the same situation that happened with another surge in Palo Alto. It burned out after a power surge. But what does the utility tell us? They tell us that their analog meters didn't have any damage. Could it be because of those surge arresters still being on those older style meters? Here we have in Ontario, and as we go along, if you can catch it, pay attention to the dates, all different jurisdictions, locations, and time frames, and what is that? Repeatability, so we start seeing that this is true. The meter blew out in a surge. Ours was all blackened. You'll see lots of blackened meters. Here's another one. Summerlin, BC. Now this was quite a large surge, so might even damage a few analog meters if they had them still. And the homeowners reported hearing a huge bang again. And what does the utility tell us? Well, it's the homeowner's problem. They have to deal with it. So the homeowners were actually told they're going to have to pay $600 to get their side of the electrical grid checked because it's about safety, right? This is all about safety. The safety authority made sure, they want to make sure everyone's safe. But my question, of course, is, and maybe you have it in your heads, how did they let all those problems I just showed you earlier go onto these people's grids if they truly cared about safety? Here's more Itron meters. This is from the meter engineering department. The principal engineer tells us that Itron meters, the same ones on your home, are failing due to overvoltage, and they're putting warnings out to their field technicians. And here we have Pico from Pennsylvania talking about the fires from Texas, Georgia, California, Canada. They were all tied to faulty installations. Fair enough, we talked about that, which lead to electrical resistance overheating and a meter meltdown, corroborating what we were just talking about. And then we have the utility itself saying, we're going to ditch those meters because we believe those devices are more susceptible to electrical overloads. So now they are actually telling us that we're right in what we're saying. The installers are saying after 15 of a total of 26 fires that we were told about in Pennsylvania are saying that it was causing electrical arcing and it was causing some fires. That's good stuff right there. Here in BC, in Mission, one day after an installation, so a few decades of getting power without any problems, and then a day after, look at this fire that happens. That's fantastic. The only thing that you have to think about, though, is it's not just your house. This fire actually damaged the neighbor's house as well with those Itron meters. This is now we're starting to get into the post office, arcing and flashing. I'm going to speed through a few of these here. The remote disconnect. Now, Hydro-Quebec is actually telling us that we want to disable this function on there because we're concerned about the meter being close to propane lines and propane tanks. Yes, that would be a complete disaster. Here we have Lakeland Electric. Overheating safety concerns. What's the issue? The remote disconnect, which is in all of your meters. And, of course, the court documents talking to us about in Texas with the same Itron meters. Problem with the communication, the remote disconnect, and many issues with the meters melting or burning up. More wiring burned in Nanaimo, same with the court documents. Here we have another blackened meter, same as all the other situations we've seen. More tracking and arcing. This is in Saskatchewan in 2014. Here's another one from Ontario. Now, this meter wasn't considered a fire threat. Not a fire threat at all, and it turns out it was a fire threat. And it's funny that these guys are actually considering some meters fire threats and not fire threats, but of course, they don't cause any fires. Here's in Vernon, BC, pops and a banging noise. In Ontario, again, it exploded. There's this big bang, good stuff. Here's Nevada, consumed meters. Look at all the fires. Actually, that should be a bigger picture, but I couldn't fit it on the screen. Here's one of the incidents that happened there. BC, 2 installs, 2 fires. Here's another one in Georgia with census meters, and they, of course, they're telling us the same thing, that all utilities say the exact same thing. We inspect the meters, we make sure there's not going to be a problem, and we do the best we can, and it turns out they still cause fires anyway. Census now then was recalling meters by the tens of hundreds of thousands, and the interesting thing, one of the utilities said, because they're all just looking out for us, is anytime that families are at risk here in Saskatchewan, actions have to be taken. You know the best way to not put people at risk? Don't put them at risk in the first place. Stick with the older, safer meters that do a better job than these ones. Here's another one from Quebec. This was in August of 2015, and they talk about the fact that these meters weren't considered a problem either. It's a different technology. Well, different technology produces same results, of course. The loud pops and a banging noise. I also want to let you guys know this is an abbreviated version, so there's a longer version online that gets a little bit more technical and goes into this stuff. Just some examples for you here. I like this story. The Liberals and Hydro and everybody else, they were looking for somebody to spearhead the program in British Columbia. And they were looking around and they looked at Gary Murphy's resume and they said, you know what, Gary, we see the work you did in Pennsylvania, all the fires you caused there with the census meters and the recalls and everything else. So we want you to come up to Canada. And for your services, we're going to pay you $1 million out of all your tax dollars because there's nobody else more qualified than you. Maybe all the other guys were causing even more fires. So he was so confident in the census meters, he actually switched to the Itron meters, and we paid a boatload of cash for those. And of course, the exact same thing happened. So you might be asking yourself, isn't there, some agency or some group or somebody that's testing these things? There's got to be somebody out there dealing with this. Well, yes and no. We have Itron. Here they are. You can see on the video, the door goes down and the door goes back up, and that's safety right there. That's all they're checking. That's it. It's a 2-second test. Nothing to do with a meter being on the side of the home with humidity and heat and cool and surges and everything else. It's just whether or not it's accurate, and it sends out a signal to the utility. Well, Measurement Canada, surely they're looking out for our best interest. Nope, they do the exact same thing. They basically do the same thing that Itron does in all the other factories. But of course, they tell us it's a safe, certified, state-of-the-art technology indeed. Here we have Mr. Langaris. This one kind of gets to me a little bit because I've talked to other jurisdictions and fire departments, and they've told me that they actually reference this document to let people know that, of course, smart meters are safe. Now, Mr. Garris was paid by BC Hydro, no conflict of interest there, of course, and he says the study eliminates the link between smart systems, not meters, systems, and residential fires. So he even goes so far as to say smart meters help to prevent fires. You would hope to think the top fire guy in all of British Columbia would know what arcing is and how it's caused. But maybe the money that BC Hydro paid this guy was too much for him to understand what arcing is. So by his word and by his pen, magically he was able to override all the laws of electricity so everyone should feel safe. Now, the other question a lot of people ask me, I was asked this in the morning on the radio, is, well, how many fires have been shown to be caused by smart meters? That's a great question. Well, I know what they do in BC. There's just not a code for smart meter fires. Magically, they all just disappear. Isn't that wonderful and very convenient for Hydro and everyone else? Now we have other guys that are on the board of directors of some papers and whatnot, and also on the board of directors of the guys that were owners of Corix and with the Liberals and everything else. And magically in the papers, what do we get? Fire concerns over smart meters appear to be overblown right after the little piece of paper that Mr. Len Garris wrote. Isn't that something, how all that works out? So we have our Honorable Rich Coleman, of course, Honorable, and Bill Bennett working together with Mr. Garris, and they say they're not aware of any problems with the meters. Wow. All this stuff going on all over the globe, and they just magically have no idea this is happening. He also says, I think the ratepayers will thank us for this. Well, we don't thank you for putting all our homes and businesses in danger. And we also have Mr. Coleman, who says, I think people just need some re-education. Well, I hope I've been able to educate you on exactly what is going on with these meters. And the thing that I have an issue with is, I don't want to just pick on the Liberals too much here, although they basically caused this mess. The NDP have had years to deal with this problem. Any one of them that got elected or as a party, whatever, our taxpayers are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for these guys to try and keep us safe as well. And here you have to have a guy like me working for free for nothing to figure out all the same things they could figure out, but they just decided not to. And all they'd ever would say was that, oh, it should have went to the BCUC, or line number 2 is, well, we think the Liberals are bad. And that's their job. That's what you get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to just say those 2 lines whenever an issue comes up.
There's absolutely no incidents of house fires being caused by a meter.
So do you still believe these people? In the face of all the money that's involved that we're going to be looking at as we move forward, do you still believe that arcing doesn't exist? Do you still believe that these guys can override all the laws of electricity? Of course not. So, of course, we have a big problem. What's the solution? Well, here, everyone wants to be environmental, and all these politicians tell us about this. The life of a smart meter, according to congressional testimony by a smart meter company, a utility, First Energy, they last 5 to 7 years. That is very interesting. Now, a lot of you people would probably understand what they say is about your older style meter analogs, 20 to 30 years. So already we have a big issue, and some will last 30, 40, 50 years without any problem. Smart meters are being priced out somewhere between $250 to $500 a pop. Analog meters, maybe $50 to $100, depending on where the pricing is. And we have the fire issue. So does it seem like we should be maybe sticking with, according to the EPRI, says the economy, accuracy, and durability and simplicity of these meters. So if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. But in fact, there's a reason why they're trying to make it broke, and of course, you broke.